Hello, dear beloveds. I am delighted to be here with you today. It's been a little bit of time since I've gone live. I've been on retreat in Mama Bali with one of my glorious teachers, Uma Svenda. And it was ostensibly a yoga retreat, but themed around the idea of the goddess rising. And every woman that was on this retreat had attended a retreat on the theme of the goddess with Uma before. So we were really coming in at another level of depth and commitment and willingness to go into the work and do the deep work, which as we know, when we're on retreat, we can really go deep into things that we may not have the time or the space to do in the ordinary work of our life. And it was a truly profound experience for me, and of course much deeper and vaster than I had necessarily anticipated. And I really had the great privilege of being held by my teacher, and it reminded me of the need for that for all of us, those of us who are on this path of spiritual leadership, those of us who are aspiring towards that path or are walking that path. In any capacity, if you hold space for others, then the need for you to be held is a very deep and real one. And I recognized as I came into that retreat that it had been a long time since I had let myself be held. And, you know, it had been a long time since I'd been in a retreat which I wasn't leading as well. And this year, the Institute is hosting 3 retreats, 2 for the third level priestesses and 1 for our postgraduate program. And so it's going to be a big year for me of holding that space for others. And it felt very important, more important than I had recognized, actually, to go into a space where I was able to receive and just be held. And Uma is a profound teacher, and it was a real blessing. What it gave me the opportunity to do as well was to reflect on the shadow side of being the spiritual leader, and really what it means when you are holding space for others is that you are in sacred leadership. You are that container, the vessel in which others may break themselves open, in my language, to meet themselves as God, or to meet themselves in greater and greater levels of depth of their being. And if you're in that role in your life, there are some aspects that I want to sort of talk about, because I believe that we can get quite caught up in the great aspects, the really positive aspects of spiritual leadership. And there are many great privileges to being a spiritual leader, but there are also the shadow sides of it. And these shadow sides are not reasons not to pursue the path, but perhaps that if we had more education around this and more access to this information in a transparent way, we wouldn't be so easily thrown by the challenges and the shadow aspects of spiritual leadership. I'll share with you a link to an article that I wrote last year for Savannah East about the shadow aspects of spiritual or sacred leadership. But I just wanted to speak about it today in the context of having just been on retreat, having just been held, looking at my own feelings around the challenges that I've experienced of being a spiritual leader, and really how to sustain ourselves, because we don't want burnout. We want to avoid the women who, and I'm speaking specifically to women, even though there are men in this space, who are stepping up to be the spiritual leaders for this new paradigm. How do we sustain ourselves? How do we ensure we don't burn out? How do we ensure that we don't, be thrown by the challenges that can come to us, the shadow aspects that others meet in themselves that can be played out on us? How do we sustain ourselves for a lifelong commitment to leading this new paradigm? And that's my commitment. I certainly don't want to, every time a challenge arises, to lose so much vital life energy that I have to kind of spend months and months picking myself up and begin again. There must be a better way. And really, my work with higher power, creating that formula for sacred leadership, as well as this article for Savannah East, and the path I walk as the leader of the Institute, has given me a lot of insight into how to create a sustainable path as a spiritual leader, and how we manage it. So what are some of the dangers, or the shadows, or the pitfalls? Well, in the probably the biggest danger we have, and we're seeing this globally, and we've been seeing this for decades, is that others will make a false idol of you. This is the guru mentality, where people will put so much or project so much power onto you, so much, in this context of spiritual work, so much sacred power onto you. They will project you onto you, this kind of idea of you as being God or the goddess, and they'll make a false idol of you. So when they see in themselves, in your presence, that they can access deeper and vaster and more powerful aspects of themselves, they'll say, that's because of you. You've got this magic skill, this ability that's made me be able to see myself as God. And our role or our responsibility as the spiritual leader is to consistently say, no, you are that already. And it's simply that your willingness to see yourself in that way is what allows you to rise. It isn't because I've got some magic special potion that makes you able to do things that you couldn't do without me. This guru mentality that we see now falling across the world, these great spiritual leaders, even the ones that we've loved and adored and had really hoped wouldn't engage in the shadow side of their own spiritual leadership and the abuse of power, we're seeing them fall now because the guru model must come to an end. We're in the age of self-sovereignty. So our work as spiritual leaders is not to say, I'm the leader because I'm better than you and I can do what you cannot do for yourself. We're simply saying, I'm the leader because I started a little bit before you, and maybe I've had better opportunity to kind of access the ways in which I can lead you into this new paradigm. But I am not the cause of your awakening to your spiritual leadership. I just maybe got some unfair advantage, or maybe I just, had less children, or maybe I've just had a bit more time for my devotion, or maybe I made a choice that was different. But I'm not here leading because I've got special magic powers. I'm here leading because it's my responsibility now to show you what is possible for yourself, not to say I am the cause of you meeting yourself as a leader. So that difference is very big and very important to me. We must not be afraid of our power to lead. We are leading a new paradigm, and we are leading others out of the darkness, and you should own that. Do not be afraid of that truth. But when others want to make a false idol of you and say to you, you're the reason that I can now do these things, you've given me the gift of this, our job is the humility to say, no, I can of my own self do nothing. You are the cause, and ultimately God or that infinite consciousness is the reason why any of us are doing what we're doing. It's very powerful to stay in that state of true humility, not false humility. And that true humility is the recognition that I can of my own self do nothing. Where I am now is but because of the grace of God. It isn't because I've done anything. It's absolutely vital that we stay in that state of humility. So Carrie's asked, how do we honor and express gratitude to our sacred mentors without projecting? I love that question. I think that's a beautiful one, is that, the responsibility is in the way that your mentors lead you, is to not create a condition in which you would ever be able to project onto them that they have the special magic source that you're trying to get access to. A great leader will always say to you, it is my privilege to serve you. I am your humble servant. I am here getting to do this work of mentoring you or guide you because of the grace of God or infinite consciousness. And whilst we pay deep respect and great reverence to our teachers, this great teacher, Uma Spender, who I got to spend the last 9 days with, unlocked things in me because of the integrity and the authenticity of the energy she holds, and I could then sit and unlock those things in the presence of her energy. And I have great gratitude for her, and I will keep letting everyone know her name, because as a yoga teacher she surpasses all others. But that's not me saying she's the only reason that I could do that. It's a very subtle but very powerful difference to recognize that honor and respect for the women who are walking the path before us and are making the way for us, and to honor them for doing that versus projecting onto them some kind of magical power that we don't have. Because we all have infinite, equal amounts of power in us. We are all equally God made manifest. And I hope that answers your question, Carrie, because it's such a powerful question, such an important one to ask. The next part of this shadow side of being a spiritual leader is that other people will project their crap onto you. So in the positive, supposedly positive side, or the power side of the equation, it might look like that they will make a false idol of you. They'll turn you into a god. They'll say that you are the reason that all the good things in their life are happening. On the other side, they're going to say, you're the problem. You've caused my life to crumble and fall apart. You're the reason that things aren't working. I can't believe that you've put me in danger. You've made me feel unsafe. Why are you making me go through this process? And they will project all of their fear onto you. So we have this beautiful two sides of the same coin. Both are very dangerous coin. And one is that as I said, that they'll make a false idol of you and they'll see you as God, and they'll replace, they'll put you in the place of God. And the other one is they'll see you as the cause of all problems. And every time they rise to meet their fear and they get scared of doing that, they will say, you've messed something up for me. You've created this problem. You're bringing up all this danger. You've put me in danger. And any version or iteration of that is what you will experience. So don't be surprised as you go along this path of spiritual leadership that not only do you have to stay in humility to avoid people trying to make a false idol of you, you'll need to stay in humility, because when people say, you're the reason that my life is falling apart, you're the reason my marriage is ending, you've caused problems for me, this is not what I thought I was going to get, you also have to stay in humility to say, is that so? And not to take things personally. And that can be really hard, because as a leader, you're putting yourself out there. You're stepping into the unknown. You're stepping out of your comfort zone, all things that we're going to talk about, into a new paradigm, to be that clear channel for God's grace in the world. And all of your courage has been brought to that moment. And then suddenly someone turns around and says, you're shit. You're the problem. You made the world worse. You've made me feel rubbish. You've made me feel like this. And if you take all of that personally, every time someone accuses you of something, you're going to close your business and run away. So what do we do in that scenario? What we do in that scenario is we inquire, is this true? We look at the accusations that people are making and we invite self-inquiry. Is there something I need to improve or change in my process? Do I need to go to my mentors and teachers and ask them, have I made an error here? Humility, again. But once you've done that, and if you feel confident that your actions were sound and that you've taken correct care and that you've been careful in the way that you've guided your student or client, then you need to be willing to see that this person is going on a journey that has nothing to do with you. And whilst it's all sunshine and rainbows and they're telling you that you're the greatest thing ever, you might be willing to accept that. But are you willing to accept that on their bad days, they may say that you're doing, the devil's work, and that you have to find that spiritual steel that keeps you in a state of clarity around your work and your purpose, so that you don't take that personally. You do your due diligence, you check in with yourself, you check in with your teachers and make sure you've done the right thing. But ultimately being aware that sometimes people are going to work their shit out on you means that you have to stay impersonal. Neither compliment nor criticism can sway you. And that is true humility. Okay, so the next phase of being a spiritual leader that may not be what we're told, that may not be the easy part, is that, baby, you are going to be way out of your comfort zone a lot of the time. You are a leader, which means you're at the front. You're leading from the front, the avant-garde. If you are a leader, you're not imitating what everybody else is doing. You're leading. And that doesn't mean that you're inventing new crap and, adding more noise to the world. It means that the integrity and the authenticity with which you show up to that leadership and that devotion separates you from others. And that may be a very isolating place where there is no one around you to confirm that your actions are, you're not getting a pat on the back. There's not a whole group of people saying, you're amazing, you're doing the right thing, because you may be taking people outside of their comfort zone. You're also taking yourself outside of your comfort zone. So you're leading from the front. And that is a place often of isolation. And we must have the spiritual stamina once again to recognize, I'm not doing this on my own. Therefore, my companions, or those I look to lead me, is the infinite, unlimited consciousness that abounds all around me. I may not be able to just reach out and find a person in my neighborhood or my community who's going to be able to understand the depth of what I'm doing and the power of my commitment, and to be unafraid of that isolation, to be unafraid that you may not have just lots and lots of people who understand you, that in fact friendships may fall away the further you go on that path of spiritual leadership, because fewer and fewer people are able to recognize themselves in you. You've moved out of your comfort zone, and they may not be willing to come with you. So this is something where we must get very clear on, ultimately, that this work is the work of the infinite. We're being called to do this work. It doesn't have to be comfortable. The great leaders that we think of when we think about great spiritual leadership, they didn't get to sit in their comfort zone. They didn't get to sit in a nice little, life in a domestic sphere. And, the great spiritual leaders of our time and of the past ages have sacrificed great things, great comforts, great loves, great families, all the rest of it in order to lead. Now, is that going to be your path? Probably not, because we're in a new paradigm. I don't believe we're in the age where you're going to be invited to have to be, strung up on a cross in order to lead a new paradigm. But what you're looking for, if you're looking for a comfort zone and you're looking to be a spiritual leader, there's a very good chance that those two things are contradictory. So to be unafraid to lead from the front means that you may be unable to find lots and lots of people who are going to confirm you, and to feel safe in that truth that you are being guided by a greater force, by God consciousness. You do not have to be looking around you or being confirmed by your peers, because you simply may not be able to have that. That may not be available to you anymore. And that you will have community, but it will change. Your life will change as a result of you stepping onto this path. And for me, that's a great blessing. I don't see that as a sacrifice at all. To be out there on your own, I don't know, there's something to me about the integrity, the quality of my work, the truth that maybe what I'm doing is leading a new paradigm, and it may not be that everybody is ready to hear that straight away. So for a time, what I'm doing is going to maybe sound strange to other people. And we know these stories of great leaders, great artists, great designers, great teachers, great healers, who were shunned and ostracized by the world because the world could not understand them. But eventually they were brought back into the body of the church and they were revered and honored. Can you keep the faith even if you're not being approved of? Even if you're not being liked, even if you're not being told how great you are all of the time, can you find that spiritual steel, that stamina to keep going, because there's a greater purpose to your life? And for me, this is very much what the spiritual leader is being called to do. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, because these are all aspects of spiritual leadership that I've experienced firsthand, and they aren't the things that we're told about. When people are trying to sell you a spiritual leadership program, or they're trying to tell you how to access more power, or whatever bright, shiny thing they're offering you, they may not be willing to invite you to look at what is it that might change as a result of that. And there's a possibility that that's because they haven't experienced that. They are actually just replicating, they're imitating, they're inside their comfort zone, they're doing what everyone else is doing. And so they may not be able to show you or educate you on these aspects of it. And just to be very mindful that the only person who can truly lead you into your leadership is yourself. You may have guides, you may have teachers, you may have programs, but you are the one who has to show up. Self-sovereignty. When I teach spiritual leadership in the third level, the first part of the spiritual leadership training is self-leadership. What is your faith like when nobody else is watching? What is your devotion like when nobody else is measuring you or watching you on Facebook or listening to you, to your lives, or seeing your pretty posts on Instagram? Are you still showing up to your devotion? Are you still making that new paradigm in the way that you show up to God? Are you clearing the path to be the clearest possible vessel? And these are the keys to becoming a leader in the world. And it all begins with self-leadership. Am I willing to be the demonstration of God's power in the world? Or am I waiting for someone to give me the magic bullet so I can just have that 6-figure income and that really nice house, and I can put pretty things on Instagram and show everybody how great and how powerful I am and how many followers I have? To me, a spiritual leader, a sacred leader, a faith-based leader is self-leading themselves into a new paradigm so that others can feel safe to follow in that energy, to follow in that energetic imprint. That is what leadership is to me in this industry, in this world. It isn't about showing others how much crap you've got. It's about being the demonstration of faith, and to know that that person has the integrity to be in their faith even when nobody else is watching. So that's all I wanted to share with you today. Thank you so much for joining me live. It's a pleasure to spend time with you. I'll be going live more often. We are in the phase of inviting those women who are ready to train as spiritual leaders and contemporary priestesses into the Temple of the Third Level. The next round begins in late July 2019, and we're inviting a small number of women into this cohort. Places are filling up, the interview times is filling up. I think we sold out or booked out our April and March interviews almost overnight. So there are some times left in May to interview. Interviews will close at the end of May. And if you're being called to this path and you do truly want to walk this path, then I encourage you to book your interview time. It's a time for you to get to know me, and it's a time for me to get to know you. And we can work out together if this program is the next best step for you. I'll share the link to book in your interview with this video if that is calling you, but please don't hesitate. As I say, there's a limited number of places and there's a limited number of interview times. They are booking very fast, and I'm not surprised, because we are in the zeitgeist of spiritual leadership. Those women who are awakening know they're here to lead in a really big way, and we need to be supported. We need our professional development, and we need our spiritual development around us when we do this work. Mwah. Have a beautiful day or evening wherever you are, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye.